Greetings everyone. In today's video we're going to be discussing the exclusive right of sale listing agreement single agency. This particular listing agreement is for the single agency relationship. In the state of Florida there's three different type of brokerage relationships: the transaction broker, single agency, and no broker relationship. There is also the form for consent to transition to a transaction broker, but for the purposes of this video we're discussing the single agency relationship exclusive right of sale listing agreement. The single agency relationship, as you can see at the bottom of this particular contract here, it discusses it. You owe to the seller utmost loyalty, confidentiality, obedience. So those are some of the main pointers of the single agency relationship that differs from the transaction broker, which is probably the more common relationship, is the transaction broker. But the single agency does exist, and the purposes of this video is to discuss the single agency relationship and how to fill out this particular listing agreement so it can assist you with your contracts, and if you're drafting this listing agreement, how I recommend to fill it out, some tips and pointers, and just my overall professional opinion on how to draft this contract. Now, before we begin, as always, we talk about our brokerage for about a minute. Our company is NIS Realty Inc. We're licensed in the state of Florida at the time of making this video, and other states to come soon. We are a 100% real estate commission brokerage. We pay all of our agents 100% of their commission, but we also do provide other benefits, including our website. It's connected to many different MLSs throughout the entire state, and we have a lot of leads and not enough agents to work all of our leads. We have seller leads, buyer leads, rentals, commercial leads, property management leads, and our website can search the market and generates all of those leads. We have a home evaluator tool where you could click on this and sellers request price estimates on their home, and we get a lot of seller leads like that, and we have so many leads and not enough agents that are willing to work them. So if you are licensed in the state of Florida and you need leads, we do offer leads, and our website generates a lot of them, including all the other technology benefits that we offer. More information can be found on our website here at nisrealty.com. You could go to the Join Our Firm page, and it discusses the plans that we offer and everything that we do. 100% commission. We have a monthly plan with monthly payments and full benefits of our brokerage, and we also offer the annual plan with no monthly payments, but it does not come with all of the benefits that we offer. And there's more information down here, such as our YouTube channel, the technology we provide, and everything else. So if you're licensed in the state of Florida and you need some leads or you want to make some extra money, we have a ton of leads, and we need some agents. So please contact us. It's a free confidential consultation. Contact us anytime. But enough about NIS Realty. Let's talk about the contract for this video, the exclusive right of sale listing agreement. As always, we get started with the seller's information here. The seller could be a person, multiple people. It could be a trust, a company name. You just put the seller's information here. You can find that through the public records, particularly the property appraiser website, to see the most recent, as far as the public records are concerned, who owns the property. If it's a company name, you put the company name, but for the purposes of this video, let's just say Billy Bob owns the property, so Billy Bob's name's going there. The next section here is broker. Now, this is where I see a lot of mistakes being made. A lot of agents, they'll put their name there. That is incorrect. You need to put your company name here. So if you're, with our company, NIS Realty Inc., you put NIS Realty Inc. here. It needs to be your brokerage name here, not your name. One thing you can do, and I recommend, is you could put in parentheses, let's say the agent is John Doe. Let's say your name is John Doe, you're the agent. You could put John Doe as listing agent or listing associate, or as listing realtor if you're a realtor. You're a member of the board of realtors. So that's one thing you could do if you just want your name added here, but you must include your company name here. Whatever company you work for, your brokerage name must be here. And then if you really want, you could add an extra here to specify that you are the listing agent. So let's say John Doe is the listing agent. We'll put that there. The next paragraph here is talking about the terms. Now, in the state of Florida, these contracts cannot exceed 1 year. They could be as short as you want them to be, 1 week, 3 days, 6 months, but they cannot exceed 1 year. So let's say this contract's going to start on September 1st, 2025. That means if it's going to expire, it must expire on the 31st of August, 2025. It does not expire on September 1st, 2026. Or excuse me here, this should be 2026. That's a common mistake I see many agents make. They will put, and they think that 1 year is, if it starts on the 1st, it ends on the 1st, 2026. That is actually incorrect. That exceeds 1 year because it ends at 11:59 p.m. on the following day. So this would be incorrect, and you can't. It's exceeding 1 year, so the contract would be invalid and incorrect. You don't want to make this simple, silly mistake here. You need to go back 1 day prior. So if it started on September 1st, it's going to end on August 31st, 2026. Similar, if you put, let's say it started on the 10th of September, that means it's going to end on the 9th of September, 2026. So let's just leave it like this for the purposes of this video, but it always ends the day before. It cannot exceed 1 year, and to avoid it exceeding 1 year, it always ends the day before. If it's the 10th, the 9th. If it's the 5th, the 4th. And so on and so forth. That's the proper way to fill out the terms if you're going to make it for a full year. And it can be as short as possible. You can make it 8 months, 6 months, but not to exceed a year. And this is how you properly write it. Don't make that mistake of writing the 10th and expires on the 10th the next year. It's incorrect and invalid. The next part here is the street address. You put the full property address here. Another thing is, it sounds silly and ridiculous, but I see this happen all the time. I don't know why agents do this. I don't know how they got a license when they make this mistake, but they'll just put, they'll leave out the city and state and the zip code. They'll just write, 123 Happy Street. Let's use our example here, and they'll just leave it like that. Or if there's a unit number, they'll write the, the city, but they'll leave out the unit number. That's unacceptable. If there's a unit number, you could write it like this. With a number sign, you could write unit 303 like this. To specify it, I usually use a number sign, but you could write the word unit or suite, like suite 303. But you do want to specify the full property address with the city, the state, and the full zip code. I see all the time agents make this mistake. I don't know why or how they do it. But a full property address. Don't leave out the city, state, and zip. Don't leave out the unit number. Don't leave out the home number or the building number. You have to put the full property address here. Don't leave out the the street or avenue, boulevard, full property address. So that's moving on from there. The legal description, you'll find that in the usually it's abbreviated in the property appraiser, the public records. It's fine to write the abbreviated legal description. The only time you can actually find the full legal description is if you have like a copy of the deed, or usually it's on the deed, and that information you usually cannot find unless you have it from the actual seller. And if you do have that, you could always write see attachment and then attach like an exhibit A with a copy of the deed or however that may be. But you would fill out the legal description here, and you do want to include the legal description. You don't want to leave this blank. Many agents leave it blank. I do not recommend it. You want to fill out, even if you get the abbreviated legal description from the property appraiser, put that in here. You could additionally put like the parcel ID, or they call it sometimes the folio number or the tax ID number. You could write maybe something like the abbreviated legal description, and then parcel number, whatever it is, usually a long number. Write Miami-Dade County, Florida. So you can write something like that, but you do want to include even the abbreviated legal description on top of this if you just want to have further clarification of the tax ID number or the parcel number. But do include the legal description, at least the abbreviated part in here. Personal property, including appliances. This is where you'll add refrigerator, washer, dryer, dishwasher, washer, dryer, whatever the appliances are that are going to be added here. I'm not going to type them all out. Microwave, oven, range, stove, water softener, whatever appliances that are included, you'll put it there. If it's a long list and there's some further things being included, you could click on the see attachment here, and you could add something like Exhibit B or whatever it is that you could attach in an additional exhibit listing the itemized amount of additional appliances or personal property included. You could even write in here like a TV's included, or certain couches, certain furniture, whatever personal property is included in the sale. A set of golf clubs, whatever you could put in here. And if you need to make an itemized list, you could do that here with the C attachment and then attach an exhibit with it. And you could label the exhibit B, C, whatever you want. Occupancy, you would write here, is the property occupied by a tenant? If it is, you click it is, and then when the lease expires, you'll write the date here whenever the lease expires. If not, then you could just simply just leave that part blank, and then you check mark is not currently occupied by a tenant. For the purposes of this video, we're going to say it's vacant, not occupied. The next part here is the price and terms. You put the sales price here, whatever it is. 500,000, let's write for the purposes of this, whatever the sales price is that you're listing it for. 200,000, 300,000, 2 million, whatever it is you put here in the price terms of it. The financing terms that are going to be accepted, I usually click all of this just for purposes of drafting the contract. Not really supposed to be discriminating upon the source of income or the source of financing. You could even check mark other, hard money lender. But some properties, they can't get a VA loan or an FHA loan because whatever, maybe the condo association doesn't have enough money in reserves, or there's many different reasons. But I usually check mark all of these just for the purposes of drafting up the contract for liability purposes. To me, if they could get a FHA loan, a VA loan, it doesn't matter to me. I would accept any offer, and you should encourage your sellers to accept any source of financing. But it depends on the type of offers you get and if they could even receive that type of financing in the community. So we'll just check mark all of these and just leave it from there, but you fill this out at your sole discretion. I'm not going to really go into the other parts of this paragraph, such as the seller financing and the seller will hold the purchase money mortgage. I'm not going to get into that. I'll be talking too long in this video. If you are going to be filling this out, or assumption of an existing mortgage, if you're a member of our brokerage, you can contact me. I'll answer your questions. If you're not a member of our brokerage and you do want my advice on how to fill this out, or if you have a situation with this, you can look into the membership options of our YouTube channel. I usually provide advice or answer questions if you're a member of our YouTube channel, not just a subscriber, like an actual member, and enroll in one of the subscriptions, that I will answer and give advice as far as filling out things like that. But I'm going to skip over this for the purposes of this video. It's rarely filled out, this section, but sometimes it is. So you'll figure that out from there, or let us know. The next paragraphs is just reading material. You could read through it. Here's something that's important to talk about: broker authority. On the next page, you could click this box if you're going to display the property on the internet, except the street address. There are occasions where you click this. Usually I would do it if there's like if I'm doing like a triplex or a quadplex, and I don't want the street address out there on like some of the big public real estate websites, so that the tenants would find out, and it would, scare the tenants that they see the property for sale. There's many different situations where you might not want the full street address out there in the public internet. If that's the case, you'll click mark this box and then advertise it accordingly. If you're going to advertise a street address, which is most of the time how properties are listed, the full property address is out there to show that it's on the market, you just leave this blank. Same thing with the seller does not authorize broker to display the property on the MLS. I don't think I've ever clicked this, but if the seller doesn't want the property in the MLS, you will click this and have them initial down here in this particular paragraph. I don't think I've ever clicked that, but the option is there if they want to opt out of the MLS. Part E, if you're going to use a lockbox system, a Supra combo lock, you need to click this. Very important. Then down here, if you want to withhold verbal offers, I recommend it, but that's at your discretion and your seller's discretion. And I also usually always click the second box, withhold all offers once seller accepts a sales contract. Once I'm under contract, I withhold all the offers, but it's up to you if you want to click this or not. I usually click all of these. The only time I don't click one is usually at the lockbox system, if I'm not going to be using the Supra, or maybe the owners live there, or there's tenants living in there and they'll be providing access to the property. Then I won't use a lockbox, but if I am, I usually always click all three of these, but you don't have to click them. It's at your discretion if you don't want to withhold the verbal offers or the offers once seller accepts a sales contract. That's for you to decide and your seller. This part here, part G, the VOWs, the virtual office websites, it's up to you if you want to click these. Sometimes I click them, sometimes I don't. Usually at the seller's request. If they don't request it, I just leave it blank and let it be. You can read through this. It's about, automated estimate of the market value, and also third parties to write comments or reviews about the listing. I usually just let it be, but sometimes sellers, and I can understand why they click this and they don't want any of this done on the property. So You could click mark these if the seller doesn't want this and doesn't authorize it, and then you need to update it appropriately, usually in your MLS if you're advertising the property there. Moving along, part G down here. So you would need to list here anything you know about the property, such as like building code violations, anything that affects the value of the property materially, as it states here, such as building code violations, defects. If you know the roof's leaking, you got to write here that you know that the roof is leaking. There's like a severe termite situation, you write here about the termite situation. If you don't know anything and there's nothing wrong with the home, or you don't really notice anything, there's nothing that you know about or aware about, you could write an unknown here. That's usually what I do. I write an unknown if I don't know anything about it, unless the seller knows and discloses to me something about it, like the roof is leaking, there's a plumbing issue, there's an electrical issue, really anything that materially affects the property's value. Something like that. There's liens on the property, it's headed toward foreclosure or something. You would list that here if you know about that. But usually it's something like if there's like a leak or a building code violation or something, serious like that. But usually if there's no problems with the property, you just write an unknown, and that's it from there. Moving along, the compensation, very important paragraph. Let's talk about getting you paid, getting your commission, the compensation. Now, you put here usually it's part A that's filled out. I'm not going to discuss about the part B or C, for options or gross lease. This isn't a lease that we're doing here, but this is a sale. So usually you would put here the percentage that you're collecting. Now, whatever you're working for, 5%, 6%, 3%, whatever the total amount of commission you're charging. It could be whatever you want here, 10% if they're willing to sign to agree to it. But for the purposes of this video, let's say it's 5%. Now, if you're charging a transaction fee, let's say a brokerage charges a transaction fee or an additional fee, processing fee, whatever you want to call it. If you're charging an additional fee on top of whatever the percentage of the total purchase price is, you'd write that here in this part. Let's say your brokerage charges a transaction fee of $300. You would write that here, $300. So it's 5% of the total purchase price plus a $300 fee. You could write that there. And also you could not fill out these two sections here, and let's say you're just charging a flat fee, you could just write here that you're just listing the property for a $2,000 flat fee. So that's all that's owed to you under any circumstance. You sell the home, doesn't matter the sales price. It could be $10 million, it could be $100,000. You're only owed $2,000 or whatever fixed amount that you put here. Sometimes you fill that out, or other times you fill out the percentage amount. So let's say we're doing a 5% of the total purchase price plus a $300 additional fee for whatever transaction fee, processing fee, whatever you want to call it, $300 additional fee. That's where you would state that there. And if your company does charge like a transaction fee and you don't put it there, you can't be collecting that transaction fee, and your company might take it out of your commission. So just be mindful of that. Broker's fee, the protection period down here, you could read through this paragraph, but just to fill this out, I usually put 90 to 180 days. I'm going to put 180 days. That's usually what I put. I've never seen anyone complain about this, but 180 days is what I like to put there. But you could put 30 days, 45 days, 10 days. This is what I like to put for the protection period. I'm not going to explain what that is really too much, but you could read through this paragraph. That's how I usually fill it out. Retained deposits. You could put whatever you want here. I usually put 50%, but you could put 10%, 20%, 0%. I usually put 50% there unless I'm told otherwise. You could read through this as far as the retained deposits, but I usually put 50%. You don't have to. It's really at your discretion. I usually put 50, and if they're not happy with it, they tell me to change it, then I change it whatever they want to. I'm not too firm on this particular number as far as keeping the retained deposits, but I usually like to keep something if there is a retained deposits and a problem. I like to collect a certain percentage of it because there's a tremendous amount of time and headaches involved that there is a situation you and your company have to get involved with it, and there's work on your end, so you should collect something, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I'm going to leave it at 50, but you can put whatever you want there, 0, 10, 80%, whatever. Compensation to buyers, brokers. So this is, if you're splitting the commission, if you are splitting let's say, what do we put here? 5%. If you are going to give a portion of that 5% to a buyer's broker, you check mark part A, and you could put whatever here. Let's say you're giving them 2%. Or a fixed amount. You can also write a fixed amount down here. Let's say you want to only give them $1,000. So you could write $1,000 here of what you're giving out of that 5% that we're working for. If you're keeping the whole 5%, you're not giving them anything out of the 5%, you could check mark part B here, and you could write the seller is going to be paying an additional amount. So let's say you're keeping the full 5% plus the transaction fee of $300 that we charged, and then the seller is also going to be required, let's say, 1% or a fixed amount. You could write it here. So the seller would be paying 5% to you plus the $300, and they'll pay an additional 1% to another buyer's broker if a buyer's broker does get involved. So that's what the seller is going to be paying that amount. Or you could fill out part C where there's no compensation offered to the buyer's broker. It's up to the buyer's broker to talk to their buyers to be compensated. That part does exist here. Typically, you usually fill out A or B. For purposes of this video, let's say it's 5% we're collecting, and we're offering let's say 2% to a buyer's broker out of that 5%. So that's how you'd fill it out there. That's probably the most common that I've seen, but I do see part B filled out. And I have seen sometimes you list it with no compensation being offered. It really just depends, but let's just do that you're giving the 2% out of the 5%. Whatever you want to write here is the amount that you're splitting it with. The next part here, my program here auto fills it, but you write the same thing, the company name, and John Doe is the listing agent, same thing as the broker that we wrote up at the top of the contract, and it discusses the duties of a single agent relationship. And of course, you got to sign it and date it here as well. So you're going to want the sellers to sign here and date it. Conditional termination. I'll go over this paragraph briefly. It's basically if you take this listing, let's say it's for a year and maybe 2 months down the road, the sellers just want to cancel it. They want to back out. They don't want to list it no more. They just want to cancel the entire listing. You could put a cancellation fee here because it does take your time and usually costs money and time to list the property, and we're doing all this for free in the beginning, and it does cost money out of our pocket. So if they do want to cancel it, usually you could charge them a cancellation fee here to remove the listing. You don't have to. If you don't want to, you could put 0 here or just leave it blank. I recommend putting something here. It could be anything, $200, $500, $5,000. It's completely negotiable what you want to put here and what the sellers are willing to sign and agree to. But I usually put something here. Purposes of this video, I'm just going to write $500. I've charged all sorts of amounts depending on the listing size, how much money I'm investing into the advertising of the property. You can charge $200, $500, $1,000, $1,500, $5,000. It really doesn't matter. You can put whatever you want there to cancel it. $10,000. So I recommend filling that out, but it's up to you and your discretion of what you want to put there. You can put 0 if you want, or leave it blank. Dispute resolution, paragraph 13. You can read through this, but for the purpose of this video, I highly recommend you always have the seller's initial here and you initial here, or your broker initial here for arbitration. I highly recommend it for this paragraph. I do not suggest you leave this blank, but it's at your discretion. You can leave it blank if you want to. My recommendation is to have the sellers initial it and you initial it, or your broker initial it. That's pretty much it. Additional terms. If there's additional terms, you can write it in here or state it there. It is not required. And I'm not going to get into any additional terms. If you want, you're a member of our brokerage or you're a member of our YouTube channel, if you have some additional terms you want advice on, you could reach out to us and I could assist you further with that. Or if you're a member of our brokerage, just contact me. You could always give me a call. It's one of the benefits of our brokerage. Call me anytime, text me anytime. I'll answer your questions, but you would state the additional terms here. And that's pretty much it. Everyone signs here, all the seller signatures, they date it, they fill out the information, brokerage firm name, it auto-fills it here, you put that there. Copy return to seller, you put the date here, check mark, usually email, but if you're mailing it or personal delivery, you could check mark that too. But basically everyone signs and dates it, and then On each page, there's initials at the bottom, so don't forget about that also. You know, the agent needs to initial down here, and the sellers need to initial down here on every single page. You know, down here at the bottom, every page there's initials, including the additional initials on paragraph 13 for arbitration. But that's how you fill out this listing agreement. I hope this video was helpful. Um, this is the single agency relationship. Remember, uh, there are 3 different relationships in the state of Florida. The single agency does exist. I don't particularly use it often, but it does exist, and sometimes sellers request it. One thing about single agency, which is kind of difficult and a little bit of annoying, is if you are in a single agency relationship with the seller, unless you transition to a transaction broker, if a buyer contacts you directly, you cannot represent the buyer and the seller in the same transaction. That would be dual agency, which is illegal in the state of Florida. So that's one thing to keep in mind about this single agency contract and relationship is you cannot represent the buyer and work with the buyer when you're in a single agency relationship. Same thing if you're working with the buyer and you're in a single agency relationship with the buyer. You cannot work with the seller or any other sellers and represent both parties. And what typically, you know, you like to do is collect the commission on both sides. You cannot do that in a single agency relationship. You must transition to a transaction broker or have a transaction broker relationship between the parties. That's something to keep in mind. But this is how you draft this contract and how I recommend to draft it. I hope this video was helpful. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you.